Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody.
That's the perfect intro. Let's run with it.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Beyond Parody, a Not the Bee podcast. I'm your host, Dan Dillon, and I'm joined by our other host, our co-host, sometimes our full-time host, Robin Garfield of Top 3 from Not the Bee.
Hello, hello.
And our editor-in-chief, Joel Abbott.
Hello.
And a picture of a bee with a red line through it, Mr. B.
Very happy to be here.
So this is another week of news so crazy you would think it was satire. Where do we even begin? What's the craziest thing that's happened? What's the most out-of-the-world thing that's happened? The most out-of-the-world thing that's happened, I guess, is this Blue Origin launch with a all-female crew. Did they actually leave the Earth? I don't know. What do you think, Joel? Did they go to space?
I think that I am actually in space here with my background versus what that rocket did. Actually coming back from space means that you have to have heat shielding. Like it's gonna look a little bit battered.
Oh yeah. Oh no, the comments, Joel. You're gonna get a bunch of I'm a doctor of physics. It's
at the edge of space, which is still really cool. I would totally do that. I would love it. It would be amazing.
Well,
really
the way
awesome.
I put it,
more power to them.
The way I put it is, it's really cool to go skydiving, right? But you're not breaking scientific boundaries by doing so, and it's cool to do that. Like, it's not that it's not cool to go up there and do that, but when the media touts this as the first all-female astronaut crew that have trained for months.
Yeah, it was a little bit, they laid it on a little bit thick. I think Katy Perry should prove all the haters wrong by being launched to the moon, and then we can leave her there. It'd be great.
There's a lot of haters.
They did go over the Carmen line, which is considered the line between...
You mean the Christian singer Carmen?
Yeah, when you said Carmen, I'm like, all our listeners.
No, it's the
We're from
Carmen.
South Park.
It's the
Cartman
line. It's 62 miles of altitude that's used to define the boundary between Earth's atmosphere and outer space. And they went 346,000 feet above the ground. So they were in outer space. They could see the whole globe. I give them credit for that.
I'm not. Yeah, they're not in space based upon the definition of the Kármán line. Like, it is what it is. Whatever. There's some line you have to call. There's still atmosphere above that. There's still atmosphere technically all the way out to the moon. Technically, there's at least particles and things like that of the atmosphere that make it out that way and don't escape. So you could say, well, anybody who's ever gone to the International Space Station, then you'd say they're not in space. Of course they are. But, the weightlessness, it's just a silly thing. The weightlessness thing is because they're reaching apogee and then they come back down. It's not that it's not cool. Again, it's just the way that the media portrayed it is out of control.
It's
the all-female flight.
Yeah. The feminism ratcheted up to level 100, just a little bit too much. I mean, it's really cool. As always, the media are clowns. That's basically what we've learned from this.
And even the woke celebrities on the left.
Yes, this was amazing.
Being bigots on the right and not wanting an all-female crew. Even the woke celebrities on the left were mad. And what were they mad about? They're mad because if you care about Mother Earth or whatever, you would stay down here and fix the problems. Is that the lame approach?
Yeah, well, the resources used could have gone to feed a trans-indigenous midget in West Africa or something. And they were upset. I think each your own, I suppose. The Emily Ratajkowski quote where she says she is disgusted. She was disgusted that they would go up in this rocket because Amazon is these are her words, single-handedly killing the planet, and that they would support Jeff Bezos or whatever. It's just great. Whatever. I didn't have a problem with it. These ladies, Blue Origin is a private company. They can put whatever they want in their rockets and shoot it into space. And I agree that the feminist angle was a little ridiculous, but everything else about it made me kind of.
But Robin,
happy.
this rocket, it runs on very rare elements known as oxygen and hydrogen, and it outputs a very dangerous chemical known as water.
Right. Very rare resources.
Destroying the Earth.
Very few
the Earth will be destroyed. We have too much water.
I just want to know, though, the feminists try to justify this as being legit by saying, well, they had to train for months. It's like, I wonder what the training was. The training is, this is how you unbuckle your seatbelt, and this is how you put your seatbelt back on. Like, I mean, like, there's nothing else they're responsible for. They don't have to push a single button. There are no buttons for them to push. They're in a capsule that is completely remotely controlled.
I will say, in the media's defense, slightly, I guess, kind of.
Oh, you can't defend
this type of sensationalism. I'm watching this thing. Netflix has a production where Bear Grylls goes and hunts down British celebrities in the Costa Rican jungle. It's kind of fun. Like, it's like a game of tag, but Bear Grylls is chasing you. And these celebrities, they will do things like walk up a hill, and then in their interviews afterwards, they're talking about how this was the hardest thing they've ever done in their life. They had one of the Spice Girls on there, and she's just walking through the jungle for an hour, and she's talking about how this is the hardest thing that she's ever done in her whole life, how it's transformed her perspective, and it makes for really good TV. That's the thing. That's why one of the reasons why they do this is it's good TV. It's way over the top. It's ridiculous. You just shake your head at it, but I guess it's not just the feminism angle. It's partially just they're trying to entertain, and this is what they do. And I think it's ridiculous, but I do think you'll see it across the spectrum. It's more of an indictment on how our entire industry is set up.
I wouldn't give them the benefit of the doubt like that. I think that it was all about feminism. I think that they just
I think it was definitely a part. I'm just saying, maybe not all about.
No, it was all about feminism.
I'll just agree a little bit.
You know what I did appreciate, and I can say this as the resident woman. You guys can't say this, but I think it was great that they wore those skin tight, sexy suits. Go feminism, you know.
I
they
can
didn't
say
wear
it too.
burqas. They did. I saw the picture and I thought we can wear those suits.
They took a lot of silicone into space. They sure did. And
I think that was their training, was how to zip up those suits.
And Joel, just to revisit what you said, the reason I know that what you're saying is not true, not to disagree with you.
I'm just disagreeing to disagree so that we can have some back and forth.
The reason I know what you're saying is not true is because this is what, the fifth flight? You have the only other one you even heard of is the one that had William Shatner on it, right? That's the only one anybody's even heard of. They don't care about Blue Origin or this. It
wasn't making it on Good Morning America.
Yeah,
it wasn't getting
they didn't talk about William Shatner's training exercises to go on this thing. So yes, it was all about feminism. And so now let's transition to the media and another misportrayal of. Well, this is really just almost criminal, the way that this story about Carmelo Anthony is being handled. The kid stabs another kid to death. Let me share the screen here.
Allegedly, we should probably just add
Yes, allegedly. Well, no, he did stab them. He didn't. It's not alleged. I didn't say murder. I said he just stabbed him.
Yeah.
He did.
Technically, until it's been proven, until it's been adjudicated.
I don't think that anybody is arguing that he stabbed the kid and he died. I think that people are arguing that he did it in self-defense, but they're not saying that he didn't do it. He's not claiming that he didn't do it, right? There's nobody who said that.
No, I just mean technically
he's allegedly
from a legal point.
He allegedly murdered him, but he definitely killed him, right?
Yeah. From a legal perspective, you just say alleged until it's been adjudicated. But for all intents and purposes, yeah, I mean, there's a video of it. I
understand that, but I'm asking a sincere question. Is anybody arguing that he didn't actually do it?
In print, if you were to write a story about this for a news article, you would say the alleged. Yeah.
But Dan's asking, is anybody out there on the internet?
No, of course not.
Yeah, everybody assumes that this is the truth, that this is what happens based on the police report, based on witnesses, based on what he said himself.
It's not about.
No, guilt. I agree.
It's not about guilt or who caused it. It's just the fact that I'm talking specifically about him killing the other kid.
Yeah, right. And the narrative, of course, is that a white kid was putting his hands on a black kid because that white kid. The narrative is that there was some racial animus here. And that this black kid, it was exactly like Kyle Rittenhouse. This was no different than what Kyle Rittenhouse did with self-defense. This kid here, Carmelo Anthony, when he was basically, I forget the exact quote, but it was a, touch me again and see what happens type of a statement. And that actually negates self-defense if you know anything about self-defense law. Right. But you literally, I mean, in all of the comments, I see people out there defending this kid going, well, you can't touch people. That gives them the right to stab you. It's like, you know absolutely nothing about reciprocal force. You know nothing about anything related to self-defense law. But
Well, and-
it's crazy the types of comments that I'm seeing. And then you have the media spin that's adding to it.
Yeah, the media.
Yeah.
If you only read mainstream media, you would think that this again was another one of these kind of the Trayvon Martin thing, a completely innocent kid who's never done anything wrong in his entire life and was put into a bad situation because of some sort of systemic racism or something like that. And he did all that he could do. Like the mainstream media narrative is presenting it that way. Not all of the mainstream media, but for the most part, that's kind of the way it is. And so it's gotten a lot of sympathy, especially from the same type of crowd that, probably did a lot of funding for the Black Lives Matter movement and things like that. A lot of people are sending this family money. And it's like, you look at the left right now, you look at the state of the left, and it's just insane. That they're defending people like Luigi Mangione, who are obviously, it seems, allegedly guilty of these crimes because they like the ends justify the means.
Do you think if Luigi was bald, anybody would care?
Honestly, if he didn't, I guess,
if he was a 60-year-old white balding dude.
Probably not. They probably wouldn't
not.
care. They would
It's
probably
very shallow.
Yeah, it's very shallow. They like the way
Kayla
that he
Lorenz
looks.
is out there fangirling over
Oh my
him.
gosh.
It's the same type of comments that you got about, I didn't realize that Ted Bundy was so handsome, and now all of a sudden there's all these people who are, obsessed with Ted Bundy. There were a lot of women who wanted to date him, who wanted to be there. And, I think in the trial, weren't there like 25 women or there something there?
at Bundy's trial. Yes. Oh yeah. He had groupies. He got married when he was in prison before he died.
It's absolutely insane. And it happens all the time. It doesn't make any sense, but it does happen all the time. But the media certainly doesn't do any part to shut that down. We shouldn't be in any way, shape, or form, honoring people who are doing these bad things. So take that out of it. Now there's this discrepancy that I think we're kind of still working through this. In fact, we just updated this article that I have on screen right now about the family of Carmelo Anthony and how much money they made off of this Give, Send, Go campaign. Have they taken the money out? Have they not? Give, Send, Go appears to have said that they haven't taken any of the funds out. New York Post here, you can see it was reporting that they just recently rented this $900,000 home in a gated community, bought a new car. Some people are saying it's a $150,000 Escalade. I don't know, necessarily whether that's true or not. But there's a lot of question as to whether or not this is true. We've updated it and said it's not necessarily clear anymore. Some people are saying that they've lived in that house since 2022.
I'm just shocked that Give, Send, Go is allowing funds to be donated. This is I
believe that Give, Send, Go is trying to play both sides here, because Give, Send, Go is typically the place you go if you're conservative and you tried to raise money and it got shut down because it violated what's the other one? Not Give, Send, Go. The other one.
You're talking about GoFundMe.
GoFundMe. Yeah, GoFundMe shuts you down, so you go to Give, Send, Go, and Give, Send, Go has this more open policy where you can raise money for anything. Kind of.
Yeah, Daniel Penny or Kyle Rittenhouse. I think it was Kyle Rittenhouse. He hadn't been accused at all. He hadn't, or he had been accused. He hadn't been convicted. Trial hadn't even begun. People were trying to give support for his legal defense there, and it got shut down. So Give, Send, Go is trying to remain true.
They're trying to stay neutral because they've allowed right-wing people to raise money on their platform.
But I just think he's on trial, or not yet, but he will be going to trial for murder. That seems like a pretty easy, but
again, Kyle Rittenhouse was charged
right.
with murder.
True.
So Give, Send, Go is saying, right. I don't know if it's right or wrong, but they are trying to take a consistent path, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, everyone deserves. So I don't think the story so much is Give, Send, Go, because everyone deserves to have a legal defense. That's their right under the law. Like, more power to them. Have a legal defense. What is insane is that Give, Send, Go has more money than the Give, Send, Go for the actual murdered kid.
Right.
That's the insane part of it, is that you have Americans out there that are giving lots of money. And the story here is really that, I mean, his family, that is a very almost $900,000 home, apparently $3,700 in rent every single month. They have a new SUV that they bought a few years ago. Like, the media frames this as a kid with white privilege attacking a poor Black innocent youth who didn't do anything wrong, who was defending himself. And it's like, well, actually, look, this turns out all this racism in America, I was told that black families couldn't even possibly afford brand new SUVs living in gated communities in Texas. I certainly don't live in a nice gated community in Texas. So, but I have all the privilege. I'm told that I have all this privilege and that I'm discriminating. And if I look at this without historical biases and oppression and reparations and all the rest of it, I'm not quote unquote doing the work. So the narrative there, it falls apart. I mean, the bail was reduced for this family. Again, he is accused of murder. Murderers don't generally get out on, accused murderers don't get out on bail.
What's the justification for the reduction in bail?
If his family's living in an almost $1 million
was it social
home,
pressure? Did the judge just simply respond to social pressure?
I mean, the argument in court had to do with race. It had to do with
It's ridiculous.
Financial means, all the rest of it. And so, the judge gave a reduced bail. But I just think about Kyle Rittenhouse, who did not get any reduced bail and was kept in prison for months on end.
And who really has privilege?
Well, and here's my take on all of this. I hate that all of these cases, Kyle Rittenhouse and Trayvon Martin, and this case right here falls along political lines. Because at the end of the day, the murder itself, the crime was not politically motivated. This is not a terrorist attack. A terrorist attack is considered an attack of violence that is politically motivated. In the case of Kyle Rittenhouse, this was not a politically motivated attack. He was there sweeping around. There was nobody was yelling anything about this or that. I mean, I know that the parties were from different political, worlds, but in this particular murder case, that we're talking it down, racial lines and all of this. Let's adjudicate the case and see what happens. But we can't do that anymore, right? Every single murder, especially if it's between a white and a black person, on any plane has to be politicized. And the left takes the black side, and the right takes the white side. And I hate picking sides. As a mother and someone who, I have 4 sons and a daughter, and if any of my children, God forbid anything happened to them, I would not care left or right or political lines. I would just want justice to be served. And I hate that we have to run to our corners immediately after this happens and start talking about it from a political aspect. And it seems like it has gotten more extreme over the last 10 years. I don't remember this being the case. I mean, I know we had the LA race riots in the early 90s, and there definitely have been really high tensions. But how we got to this point.
Well, O.J. Simpson was a really good example of it.
But now it is every single crime. It seems like we have to pick a side, and this is just the evidence that I've seen. It shows that this kid is guilty. It shows that he did what he said he did, or it shows he did.
Most crimes just get ignored because the victim isn't the part of the narrative, the victim narrative. You don't have to take a side on those ones because you never even hear about them, or at least the media doesn't report. Not the B tries to bring light to a lot of those situations where the opposite is, not necessarily the opposite, but typically a lot of these situations, you'll hear about the ones where a white person aggresses against a black person, but you won't hear the opposite. This one just kind of struck a national chord for whatever reason. Some of them blow up this way and you do hear about them. But typically if the victim or the attacker doesn't fit a narrative, then you don't even have to take a side because you don't even hear about it.
Yeah. And I think as well, it's a helpful reminder. The political tribalism is not good. Go all the way back to George Washington. He warned against it. But that type of tribalism is being driven from the left. That I think we can't forget that, because remember this whole category, like in this case, there's no video. We don't have any video. We have eyewitness testimony. We have some police statements. We don't have video. So my instinct here to make sure, like you said, Robin, that justice is done under the law. We should care about truth, justice. That's what God wants us to care about, not narratives and things like that. In here, I would say, hey, we need to move forward with this case and just adjudicate it. Let's go through. He's going to be tried by a jury of his peers. That's how we handle things. We don't go out and seek retribution. All the rest. We have a justice system.
The country should be united in wanting justice.
But at the same time, what the left has done is made everything about race. So Daniel Penny in New York, there was absolutely no racial animus there. But the prosecutor kept referring to him throughout the trial as the white man. And with Kyle Rittenhouse, a lot of people to this day still think that Kyle Rittenhouse killed 3 black people. He did not.
Right. No.
He did not. Not a single one of them was black. And 2 of them were like convicted pedophiles. So it's it's like people just don't. The media runs with that. They frame same thing with Derek Chauvin and St. George Floyd. There's no evidence that there was any racial animus there whatsoever, but they still portrayed it that way. They tried it that way. And so now everybody is so triggered that when they see something like this event in Texas, immediately the battle lines are drawn. But it is the left that has done this to us.
It's all purposeful too. I mean, that's the whole, they're trying to stir up division. You divide and conquer. That's been, the method that they've been doing since, I guess the 40s, 50s, since the modern left-wing media culture was.
If anybody wants good reading, go read 1960s Saul Alinsky. I don't know, Joel or Dan, if you've read Saul Alinsky, but Obama cited him as one of his major influences, but it was divide, misinform, propaganda. It kind of laid the framework for kind of the modern Marxist movement. The only thing I would push back on a little bit, and then we can move on from this, I 100% agree that the left is the main driver of tribalism. I do see a lot right now on the right of people having bad opinions about things because they take the opposite side.
And they automatically take the opposite side, and they automatically assume. When this story came out, there was definitely a lot of big name accounts on X from the right that just jumped on this and didn't even question the facts. They just knew who was guilty, right?
And I think it's important we make fun of them as well.
Yeah, you should. Either side, including the people who are talking about them buying this Escalade with the money and everything like that. Like, this was reported by big names on X, and if it's not true, they're feeding their audience what they think their audience wants to hear, and that's equally as bad as the left-wing media doing it. It's equally as bad. I don't want anybody doing it. It's ridiculous. You don't need to sensationalize stuff. This stuff is the world is so crazy, you don't need to sensationalize it. You just report on the actual facts. They're crazy enough, which is, kind of the niche that we found. Now, speaking of something that was surprising, at least from our standpoint of, okay, I always assume that the left-wing media is going to react a certain way to stories. I always assume that the Supreme Court of the UK is always going to rule in specific ways, and sometimes I'm wrong. And just yesterday, here, I'll share this one now. The UK Supreme Court ruled that only women can be women in a shock decision. So they've legally defined women as biological women, at least for certain things, I guess, right? I think that the motivation for this, I read somewhere that the motivation for this came from the fact that, back in the 90s and early 2000s, during the real big feminist push in the UK, I guess they pushed so that like local parliaments or whatever would have or local governments, whatever they call them over there, would have 50% representation by women. So there was this, kind of forced diversity that they wanted to do, which I don't agree with. I think that things should unfold how they unfold naturally, but they wanted like 50% of the people in the governments to be women. But now I guess somebody sued because they were counting trans women as women. But then they're like, there's a scenario that could exist where, like you could you now have 50% of them are biological men and 50% of them are trans women. And so you end up with basically 100% men, right?
Men, yeah.
And so
I think the headline should be UK Supreme Court rules that 2 + 2 = 4.
Yeah, 100%.
On any level.
So they actually rule. I can't believe that they did this, because this is a domino type of a ruling, because this will definitely, at least in the UK, it sets the precedent for everybody to now sue the sports leagues and things like that are allowing trans athletes into women's sports and all that other stuff.
Are all 4 of those women supposed to be trans women?
No, one's
the
J.K.
one
Rowling.
on the back left is J.K. Rowling,
Who's
and
the best?
Joel has the background picture up right now. That is I want it to be the image of 2025. It is a picture that J.K. Rowling posted yesterday on X of her drinking what looks like a glass of bourbon or something, or maybe just a glass of dark wine, and smoking it.
Joel, you shouldn't be smoking on this podcast.
She posted, she said, "I love it when a plan comes together."
Yeah.
And she just posted a picture of her smoking a cigar. Did you see the King's Counsel? So this would be the lawyer for the Scottish government. Who is it? Joe Maugham, if that's how you say his name. I don't know if you guys saw his post at all, but he said, He said that the Supreme Court's decision has made me ashamed of my profession and ashamed of what our law has become, but we won't stop fighting. I don't know if he was on this case or if he's just King's Counsel, which is one of the government lawyers
Oh my goodness.
in general. I don't know, but that was going around and it made me laugh. You are ashamed of the fact that the UK Supreme Court affirmed that women are women.
And you know what's crazy
Ridiculous.
is that you can, to this day, even after all these changes Mark Zuckerberg has said he's had, you can go on Instagram right now or Facebook and say trans women are not women, which the UK Supreme Court just ruled, and you'll get banned.
Yeah, we
Right.
still have to be real careful. We
still have a
will
long
get
ways to go.
nuked from orbit if we
Yes.
dare say
The
something
thing about-
out of line.
All of this that really just makes me chuckle and cry at the same time with the trans movement is women fought for so many years. This is like the crux of the main feminist movement, is that women need to be strong and we don't take crap from no one. What is the crux of the trans movement is that women, me, a biological woman, and I hate that I even have to quantify it like that. Now it is be nice. Just be nice. You just need to be nice, women. Be nice and let these men in your bathrooms. Be nice, blah, blah, you know. And that was what we kind of like, the only part of feminism that I think was useful is that no, women, you don't need to just be nice all the time. Sometimes you should stand up for things and, you know, be cute, be pretty, whatever. And now we're being told right all over again, just be nice. Why is it so much to call someone by their preferred form? Just be nice, women. Like that, it just drives me absolutely crazy.
It's
the thing about
toxic
all of this.
empathy. If you make empathy the chief virtue, then all other virtues are subservient to it.
Right. And it's they've weaponized it against women especially. And now if you say a man is a man, then you're not being nice. You're being unkind, and kindness matters. And like this is, I thought we got over this, you guys. I thought the whole point of this whole thing, the whole feminist movement, was so women didn't have to just be nice anymore. And now it's like the Republican women, the right wing conservative women are the ones saying, we're not going to just smile and be nice. We're going to stand up for our principles. And it's just that horseshoe, you know, what do they call the horseshoe theory?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like they always accuse conservatives of holding women back, and conservatives back in the 1950s were saying, get back in the kitchen, woman. And now leftists in 2025 are saying, just get undressed in front of men, woman.
Shut up and get undressed in front of men.
The roles have completely reversed. And that's crazy. Yeah. The only people that I see, and you know what? Actually, that's not true, because J.K. Rowling is definitely not part of the right. She's not a conservative.
She's not at all.
She's not a part of the right at all. But there are some, I guess, that are, and those are the ones, honestly, in this case, those are the ones that I kind of respect the most, because to a lot of people, even J.K. Rowling, people say, well, she can't be canceled. Of course, she's going to be willing to say the things. That's not true. I mean, her brand has been tarnished in the realm of popular culture. It has been. Unrightfully so. She should be praised for standing up for women. She should be praised for it. But of course, you have this contingency of people who are really, 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 really upset at her and don't want her involved with Harry Potter anymore. Kind of like what happened with George Lucas and Star Wars. People are like, you made 3 bad films, so we don't want you involved in this anymore. But this is like, they don't want her involved because they hate her. Like, they literally hate her. She has things to lose. And I mean, she's stood up to the point where she said, you can come throw me in jail. And she's dared them to. And I 100% believe that J.K. Rowling is the type of person who would gladly serve a jail sentence for going against Orwellian culture.
And I have a lot of faith that long term, the brand will not be tarnished. Even, I feel like we're chipping away at the crazy. But I think in 100 years, people aren't going to be talking about the trans movement. Well, they will, as like an anthropology study, a study in crazy like some weird movement that happened. But people will be looking at Harry Potter and still respecting the brand.
I think so. I hope so. I really respect her. I have a lot of disagreements with some of these people, sometimes publicly on X. But like Martina Navratilova and Billie Jean King, some of these people, these are people that I never agree with on anything. Like literally anything, except for the fact that there should be places for just women. There should be sports for just women. There should be, they've drawn a line someplace and they know that it's very unpopular with their base. And that's hard to do. It's hard to do it on the right. I mean, let's think of an example on the right of when you can't go along with maybe I guess you could call it the Trump movement, like the Trump MAGA movement, because you want to stand by some sort of a Christian principle. And when Trump started to soften on abortion, for instance, right? It's like, well, standing up against your own base to say, no, this is where I draw the line. I'm going to stand up for, I'm always going to be pro-life proudly. I'm not going to make any exceptions to it and things like that. It's tough to do. I think that's harder to do than just simply going along with whatever your side of the argument.
It is hard to do because we are so tribal, as we talked about before. And I think it scares people to disagree with their group.
It shows true character, though. When somebody stands up against the people that they're not always right. I'm not saying that they're always right. When people stand up against the Trump movement, it doesn't mean they're right. The Trump movement has been right about a lot of things. But it does show that they're sticking with what they actually believe, which I respect, even if I believe what you're saying is completely wrong. But most people these days just go with the flow, 100%. So speaking of going with the flow, let's talk about going to El Salvador.
Which end of this stick do we want to pick up? Jeez. Who's an expert on this? Because I've read probably 10 hours on this case this week, and I know less now than I knew at the beginning.
All you need to know is that, this guy, this Maryland person, well, I'm not going to call him a citizen.
Loving father of three,
who definitely has never had any type of restraining orders filed against him or anything like that, or ever been proven to be a member of the MS-13 gang. Was deported, and people say wrongfully so. I guess maybe he wasn't supposed to be part of the manifest when he was shipped out or whatever. And now they're demanding that Trump return him. In fact, federal judges are demanding that Trump return him. And Trump's like, well, how am I supposed to do that? You want me to go, the president of El Salvador was just here, said he's not going to ship him back. What do you want me to do? Go in there and start a war in order to bring this guy back? And I now you have multiple Congress people, Democrats, talking about going over to El Salvador to release this guy. Like he's some sort of a martyr or somebody who deserves. He's not a U.S. citizen. Now, that doesn't mean that people who aren't U.S. citizens should just be shipped out of the country without any reason, right?
No, and it's really complicated. First off, I have been trying so hard again it's easy to get caught up in what your side is doing. Whatever the Republicans are doing right now, I'm going to just agree with all of that. It is clear that the Trump administration made an error the term actually for this is not technically deportation, it's repatriation, because he was sent back to his home country, which is something else I learned this week. I mean, it is a deportation, but it is technically a repatriation back to El Salvador. And what it really hangs up on here is that he had a court order that said he was not to be repatriated to El Salvador because he was seeking asylum from some threats of gang violence or whatever. But he absolutely could have been deported to another country. And what country? We have reciprocity with a variety of countries in South America. So he could have been sent to any number one of those. But he was sent back to El Salvador and put in CICOT. And that's where there was an error made. And what the courts have ruled, and it's gone for the lower courts and up to the Supreme Court says now that Trump has to effectuate a return back to the U.S., facilitate. And these are two very different terms. Effectuate, and this is why it went to the Supreme Court. They say he has to facilitate a return back to the U.S. So he can have his day in court or have his hearing or whatever, and then be sent somewhere other than El Salvador. That is the only issue. He was here illegally. Full stop. He should have been removed from the country, and he did have ties to M13. So those two things, the courts have ruled. He's been adjudicated on those issues. What hangs in the balance here is whether or not he should have been sent to El Salvador. Again, a lawyer could come on and argue with me about this. Now, there are due process laws in the U.S. for non-citizens under the 14th Amendment, with the Equal Protections Clause and some of these other things. Again, I'm not a lawyer. I've just been reading a lot, and I've talked to a bunch of lawyers about this, because I'm really been trying to understand this objectively, trying to understand what's going on here. But it seems like he should have been given more of there should have been more proving out of some of these court documents that existed. and there was an error made. We need to rectify that. But going to El Salvador,
Yeah, well, the thing is this: there's a lot of mistakes that are made, and
Sure.
and they affect citizens, they affect non-citizens. What's crazy to me is who the Democrats decide to get behind.
Yeah.
Again, you're
It's
looking
ridiculous.
at they're getting behind murderers. They're getting behind people who have obviously done things wrong. I'm not saying this guy's a murderer. I'm just saying that they are taking the backs of the wrong side on almost every single one of these issues. Here's another GoFundMe I have on screen right now for this guy's family.
Right.
They are always coming to the defense of the people who most of the time are indefensible. Now, it doesn't mean that the clerical errors with our legal system don't need to be fixed. I believe that they should be fixed, and I think that the president of the United States should adhere by court rulings, whether he agrees with them or not. But it's the approach of just idolizing these people, making
Right.
them all out to be innocent. It's the same thing as the Carmelo Anthony thing. It's the same thing as the Trayvon Martin thing. They make these people out to be these innocent victims of Trump and innocent victims of the right. And they're not innocent victims. And
No.
that's the thing. You see Democrat senators getting on planes and flying to El Salvador for no reason whatsoever than to make a publicity stunt, because there's not
It's
anything
ridiculous.
they're going to do. They're not going to set up a meeting with anybody. They're not going to negotiate. They don't have any authority to negotiate the release of a prisoner.
They're going to get a photo op.
And they're going to get a photo op over there in El Salvador and say, I'm
They're gonna
fighting
get
for you.
AOC.
But who are they
Yeah.
talking to? Because they're not fighting for me. They're not fighting for citizens. They're fighting for non-citizens. They're
Right.
over there doing stuff. It doesn't even make any sense. Meanwhile, we still have hostages in Gaza.
In Gaza. Yeah.
American hostages in Gaza. And
ridiculous.
no Democrat senators are flying over there because they're
No.
too afraid of the optics of supporting people who are sympathetic
It's
to
real.
Israel.
Right. It's ridiculous.
And so it's all that. This is the theme of the week. It appears I didn't even, wasn't necessarily thinking about it. It's the theme of the week is Democrats setting up GoFundMes and Give Send Goes and supporting the wrong people. And they talk about being on the wrong side of history constantly. You're on the wrong side of history. They're on the wrong side of not just history, but of almost every single battle along the way. And it's
Well, and
pretty
even
obvious.
in this case, I went last night and read the restraining document that his wife filed against him in I think it was 2018 or 2019. It could have been more recent than that. It was at like 1 a.m. last night. I was reading X, which is a terrible, terrible thing to do. And she writes in this statement, and again, this doesn't mean that he doesn't get his day in court. This doesn't mean he doesn't get due process. But there was an incident where he hits her and punches her. They have their 1-year-old in the car. He gets in the car and starts driving erratically. He starts making these crazy turns, and she says she was scared for her child's life. She went to the cops. She since rescinded all of that because now the money's coming in or whatever. But at the time, he had a domestic violence complaint filed against him from his wife. It's not like this guy was a Boy Scout walking around.
No, definitely not. I'm not.
And again, that doesn't mean he doesn't get his due process. It just means that, like you said, Dan, the people that the left tends to lionize, just let the chips fall and see where this plays out. But you don't need to throw all of your moral weight behind these people. You just don't need to. There's no reason
there's
to.
no reason to. And that they're constantly doing so. And that's what I don't understand. I don't understand. They're already polling at historically low numbers. And I'm not saying that everything should be done based on the polls. You should do what you should get behind what you believe in. But we all know that they don't, right?
No,
they only
that's
only get behind things that they think is gonna poll well, but they're not even doing that. They're making themselves less and less popular by supporting these people and not supporting citizens. You still have people. I'm one of them, and I'm not trying to create a sob story, but in North Carolina during Helene, I don't know, probably most of you don't know this, but we lost a bridge to one of our properties, and we still don't have a bridge to one of our properties. The road that leads to the bridge hasn't even been fixed yet, so we can't even fix the bridge. You've got American citizens all over this country that are, in different varying levels of needing government assistance, and needing people to stand up for them and advocate for them. And yet you're sitting here not sitting here, you're getting on a plane, sitting on a plane and going to El Salvador. And there's so many other people here. And it's not just Hurricane Helene or however you said that. Helene, is that how you said it?
Helene, yeah.
It's not just those victims. It's not just, the California wildfires. They've only approved 4 permits to rebuild houses during the California wildfires.
You have a better chance of winning the Powerball.
But all of their
lottery
representatives are all obsessed with this guy and with Carmelo Anthony and with, people who don't represent them as just law-abiding American citizens.
And Joel, a while ago, had the heat map on, and some people hate the heat map, but I find the heat map to be very interesting. And that's that if you haven't seen it, there's this little meteor that's going away and a little meteor that's coming into the center target. And if you don't know what this is referencing, is they did this giant meta study a while ago, and they found that people who identify as liberal tend to have their sympathies placed with outer, I can't explain, Joel's got it up right now, but with causes and externalities that do not relate to their inner circle, family, faith, friends, and that conservatives pull their concern, their worry, their empathy towards the people in their inner circle and go out from there. And I think there is some truth to that. I think there is a huge disassociation we have in the country right now, even on issues like taxes, because the Democrats want to throw your taxes everywhere. That is your money. And it's really hard to make this connection between the dollar that comes out of your pocket and the dollar that goes to pay for whatever pet cause. But I think it all ties into what you were saying, Dan, is that it's this disassociation with issues domestic and a fascination and almost a fetishization with issues foreign issues.
Foreign issues. Yeah. And again, what's the motivation for that? People have all different types of theories about what they're trying to do here, and change people's sympathies and change people's focuses and change the demographics of the country itself. And, it's crazy. I just don't know. We've highlighted, I think, 3 stories today where the Democrat position doesn't make any sense, really. It's okay for you to want justice in the case of Carmelo Anthony. That's a logical position, but to just simply blindly support somebody who apparently, based upon the facts, did something very bad. Luigi Mangione, the same thing. And in this case, this guy, it's like you're dropping everything to go over there. So, it's all about optics. And speaking of optics, we had the funniest optics I've ever seen.
This is my favorite story of the week. I know what you're going. I know what you're talking about. It's my favorite story of the entire year.
There were some great memes that came out of this. Actually, my favorite is the little toy, which you reach at the end, which is the little AI generated toy of Gretchen.
Please go online and look at
my governor.
Oh, Joel, I forgot.
Gretchen Whitmer shows up at the White House to do a little business with Trump and then realizes she's walking into a place where they have cameras. Oh my gosh.
That's so great.
Imagine a governor meeting with the president of the United States. How embarrassing.
How embarrassing is that for her?
I like that the folders matched her blazer. Can I just say that? That was some coordination.
Joel, since you're in the same state, do you have a piece of paper you can cover your face just up to your eyes? Let's see it. Ready? 1, 2,
all I have is
3.
a drawing of a puffin from one of my kids.
Oh, that's adorable. Where did Joel go?
He looks kind of.
Where am I? I'm not here.
Why are you talking to the president?
It's so funny.
You got. This
is what the 3 people.
What did she think was going to happen when she walked into the Oval Office? There wasn't going to be any press.
I think she was hoping, or she had been told it was a private meeting.
If I can't see them, they can't see me. So for people who don't know and who aren't looking at the screen right now, she walked into a meeting with the president, and which is great, which is fine. The governors have to interact with the president, whether they support the president or not. Republican governors were meeting with Joe Biden throughout his presidency when he was awake. And so Gretchen walks in. This is hilarious. Autism Capital on X post. If I can't see them, they can't see me, as she holds her folders up in front of her face. Gretchen Whitmer put herself in a position to be used by Donald Trump for propaganda. It was so bad she tried to hide her face from the camera. Sorry, but this degree of stupidity and political incompetence should disqualify her from it. I don't know if I agree with that tweet, but I love this.
Was it as bad as the communion picture that she has? One went viral last year.
That one I didn't.
She's had some really interesting photos. It's
this is great. The bag over the head.
Yeah, she's got a bag over her head.
Donnie Detroit. There's a good follow if anybody wants a fun account from Michigan. Just a shout out to my fellow Michiganders. Donnie Detroit. He was the guy with the paper bag over the.
Where's Whitmer in the style of Rose Waldo? I love that. I love this one though. This one's really good at the bottom. Hold on. I love
the little toy meme.
Like she's got.
They did her dirty with that. They made her look pudgy, and she's not pudgy.
Animated.
Yeah, but all the little toys. That's like
folder
the
of
style
invisibility.
Of these. She just grabs the folder. It's little hands.
That's so great.
It's perfect. Like that is a good use of AI right there. Like
If I'm on the left, I want to laugh at this too. Can we make this a bipartisan funny story? I laugh at stupid things that Republicans do all the time. I would hope that if you're on the left that you saw this and you got a good chuckle
if the
out of
political parties were swapped, I'd still be laughing at this. But because it's Gretchen Whitmer, because she's just had so many horrible PR things over the years, is somehow still running my state into the ground, I might add.
Oh my gosh.
It just gives me an extra little chuckle.
mm-hmm.
How bad does it have to get, Joel, for you to move out of the state?
How bad? I don't know. Sometimes it fluctuates.
See, I hear a lot of complaining from the people I know in Michigan. I hear a lot of complaining from the people I know in California who are conservative, but they never leave.
We left.
You guys never leave. Well, yeah, Robin, you left. You left California and you went to.
We did.
I mean, there's a point where you go, okay, my family's lived in this area for 150, 200 years, and we have roots here. I've like 98% of my family clan lives here. So you have to start thinking, sure, there are personal reasons to move away, but then I'm not opposed to moving out of Michigan. It has to line up. It has to actually be. There's a lot of places. It used to be you could move to a lot of cheaper cities, lots of places for work. Things are a little bit more difficult now.
I couldn't believe during COVID that Adam stayed in Michigan. I couldn't believe it. It was crazy up there. I went to visit Adam once. For those of you who don't know, I'm talking about Adam Ford, who is the founder of the Babylon Bee and co-founder, not the Bee. We went up and had a meeting up in Detroit in the middle of COVID. And I mean, actually it wasn't even the middle of COVID. It was like a year into COVID, but it felt like it was during that time, during the first like 3 weeks where everybody was freaking out still. Like everything was shut down. There wasn't a single shop open in the airport. Everybody had triple masks on everywhere. It was crazy. It felt like a different world than being in a red state at the time.
Oh, yeah, you were
really
coming
was.
from Florida? Yeah.
Yeah, and Florida, honestly, Florida didn't respond, not to go off on the COVID thing. Florida didn't respond great either at the very beginning. Getting kicked off the beach when there's nobody around you is insane. It's insane. Everybody responded poorly to it in the first 3 months, but a lot of the governors of Republican states ended up.
The thing that was so evil in Michigan, they did actually lose a lot of businesses. A lot of people did move out who actually had businesses, who had reasons to really just move and set up shop elsewhere, because the Queen Gretch weaponized the health department to go after businesses, giving businesses fines from the health department if they remained open, if they didn't comply. And there were a lot of people that lost their entire livelihood. So yeah, there's a lot. Our state right now is really struggling with jobs and with businesses because people are just moving. And the only reason people come to Michigan now is to get abortions.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, and she had the second worst optics. She's always bad with optics, but she had the second worst optics behind probably Newsom.
With arresting surfers.
Going out to.
I have family members that have started moving to Tennessee, like everybody else. All the people fleeing the bluish states.
Yeah,
but we did vote for Trump this last year. We got enough conservatives to get out, and
yeah, it was great. So I'm going to go through a couple other. What I think, they're not necessarily all funny, but just crazy headlines, just real quickly before we transition to do some questions from Mr. B. Ready, Mr. B, in a second?
Oh, yeah.
This is crazy. I just can't even believe this, but there's nothing more peak government than this. On April 15th, I don't know if you guys know this or not, but the IRS actually scheduled maintenance of their payment system to occur on April 15th.
Oh, jeez.
They had a planned outage. Direct Pay had a planned outage on the IRS website from April 14th to April 15th, 2025.
Why do we think that is? That's intentional. For what reason?
So the interesting...
No, it's just the government.
People were pointing out this was short. Like in the screenshot that I used I should have probably used a different screenshot, but on the screenshot, it was only a 15-minute time period, actually. But here's the problem. It wasn't just 15 minutes. And I tried to, in the article, you'll see other people posting things, people logging on at different times. It wasn't available. I actually went onto the payment system, seeing these posts. I went onto the payment system at, when was it? Just before 10 o'clock. And then I tried again at 10:30. I tried again a little bit after 11, and it was unavailable. It was totally unavailable. So, and I don't know how far that extended earlier into the evening. So let's say that you're somebody, you get home from work, you filed your taxes, you're trying to do estimated taxes. And yes, you can schedule these things. Lots of people do, but there's a lot of people that are trying to get things filed at the last minute, trying to make sure that it gets in before the deadline. This is, it's a complicated process because income taxes are insane and stupid and immoral. But anyway, it was offline for more than just 15 minutes. I will tell you that.
Right.
So
and even 15 minutes, you're thinking, oh, it's just 15 minutes. If I just sit at my computer and refresh, A, you don't know when it's coming back up. B, there are people who are just doing it during that 15-minute window and think, oh, it's down, and then they don't do it that day. And C, it's ridiculous that you would even plan. This was planned maintenance. This wasn't emergency maintenance.
You guys can't do it like 5 days from now.
That is the marker of, if anybody wants to know how the government works, this is exactly how it works. You had a crew of people who are like, well, no, we have planned maintenance for the 14th. And they said, well, you can't do it. It's the tax days. Like, no, every 14th of April, we do maintenance. It's in our work log. We have a work order for
crazy.
And this is some other organization. Yeah, it's crazy.
So 2 other stories that happened this week, which are nuts that they happen well, at least the stories came out. I actually don't know when the helicopter crash happened, but the United Airlines had a bunny strike, which I guess has happened before. I've heard of bird strikes.
It's happened before?
It has happened before. There was somebody who... I saw it on YouTube, actually. There was a video. It was from like the 80s or the 90s. It has happened before. A bunny has gotten into an engine. So there was a United Airlines bunny strike. And on the same week that we reported on a helicopter that crashed due to an unsecured penguin.
What?
This is unfortunate.
This picture of the penguins from Madagascar going crazy in the helicopter, karate chopping all the controls. That's what I'm personally picturing. Now, I don't want to make light of it. I actually don't know. I didn't look at the helicopter crash itself. I hope nobody died. I hope nobody died. But
no one died.
No one died. No one was injured. Not even the penguin.
Nope.
Good. That's who I really cared about, was the penguin.
Let's be real.
I think this is organized. I love that.
Yeah, it's the attack of the rodents. Joel's got the killer bunny up on his screen now. That may be the greatest 5 minutes of comedy ever written. Mm-hmm. And when you go back and watch that scene and understand it's all practical effects, and they had that rabbit on like fishing wire.
It was on a fishing wire. They're like using an actual fishing reel, and then it bites his head off, and his head falls. And that was the first.
But here's my question: so I assume what happened was that this.
I don't want to know what happened, Joel. I don't want you to tell. All I want our audience to know. I don't want to know it. You're gonna ruin this for me. I do not want to know what happened.
It wasn't a glitch in the matrix.
Go on notthebee.com if you want to read the article about the unsecured penguin. I don't want to be told what happened with the unsecured penguin. I'm picturing the Madagascar.
No, I'm talking about the rabbit. The rabbit. That's what I am. The penguin. Actually, it's more logical what happened. If you go on to Not the Bee. I'm not going to talk about it. But the rabbit is boggling my mind. I do not understand how the rabbit mid-flight got into the engine. I am confused.
Was the rabbit on the plane when the plane took off?
I assume it was in the cargo bay. That's what I'm wondering is how does it get?
I also saw a picture of a duck on a wing the other day.
That was photoshopped. I am 90. Was it? I know what you're talking about. I just assumed that it was 99% whatever. You can't sit on the Bernoulli's principle looking at the amount of gust going over those.
Well, I mean, it depends on how early in the flight it was. I didn't look into it forensically to see if it was possible or not. But birds.
A duck is pretty aerodynamic, though.
Do we have the video from inside the cabin? They had the video from of the rabbit strike, of the engine on fire. People were taking video from out the window, and it was on fire.
Go on notthebee.com and look it up. You'll find it.
It's a rabbit.
So we have now let's go ahead and transition to doing some personal stuff. But first, a word from our sponsor. Robin, take it away.
That's right. We have a sponsor this week, and I read about this last night on my show, and I think this is a phenomenal product. So sip on the power of nature with Grassi. If you haven't heard of Grassi, it's spelled Graasi. The organic wellness water that does more than just hydrate. This small business was founded on a mission to keep jobs here at home, investing in American manufacturing instead of sending production overseas, which is a big deal right now. Made and sourced in the United States, each bottle of Grassi is packed with detoxifying barley juice grass plus barley juice powder plus 100% of your daily vitamins, C, D, and zinc, which is a big deal for me as a mom. Those are good vitamins to get into your kids. It's USDA certified organic, plant-based, vegan, and low in sugar, making it perfect for athletes, families, and anyone who wants to stay healthy on the go. Grassi is perfect for anyone seeking good health and peak performance and is the proven hydration beverage of choice for professional athletes. Grassi is the proud sponsor of fighters in mixed martial arts, which is awesome. I love watching MMA fights. Most recently, Grassi was the official hydration sponsor of the Baroka, where Legends Rise event in Las Vegas, where young professional mixed martial artists compete. So head over to grassi.com. Again, that's GRAASI.com and use code NTB20 and you can save 20% on your entire one-time purchase today. It does not apply to subscriptions. When you sip on Grassi, you're not just supporting yourself, you're helping support American workers and local communities across the country. So thank you so much, Grassi, for sponsoring this episode.
Yep. And that code again is NTB20, as in not the B20.
I'll say my mom always gave us barley powder on top of, she'd have some of that, and whenever we were sick or anything, mixed with vitamins. That kind of reminds me of my childhood.
Barley powder.
All right, Mr. B, take it away. What do you got for us this week?
Robin, as I've said in the past, I will always start with you. Your first question: would you fly to El Salvador to smuggle an MS-13 gang member into the United States of America?
No. Who
Why
would do
not?
that? Who would do such a thing?
Democratic senators.
Is he going to smuggle him like a penguin in a helicopter?
You would if you could.
No, final answer. No.
Okay, your real question is, what is, and you are known as what? Our nuclear buff? Is that the right term, Dan?
Please, no.
Atomic
Not
buff.
nuclear buff,
Atomic buff.
atomic war buff.
Okay.
I guarantee you guys know
Fallout.
She loves
Vegas.
Fallout.
I love Fallout. Never going to live that down.
What is your favorite nuclear detonation between these two? Trinity, which was in 1945. It was the first ever nuclear explosion. It was a plutonium implosion bomb. Or
Okay.
Operation Hardtack 1 in 1958, which is my personal favorite. It's the underwater tests in the Pacific.
Was it at the Bikini
That's the
Atoll?
one they
Yes.
show in all the Godzilla movies, right?
Yeah, I like that one the best. I go with underwater. Final answer.
Okay. We are in agreement there. Joel, what
That's
is
my
a weird habit that you have?
Weird habit.
Yeah.
If it's a habit that I have, would I be cognizant of the fact that it's weird? You might be wanting to ask my wife this question.
Get her on the phone.
Habit. No, she's putting a kid down for a nap.
Or bad habit. Let's go with
Bad
that too.
habit.
Like,
I
do you
don't-
chew your toenails or anything like that?
No.
His habit is not having any habits. It's a bad.
I don't have any habits. I'm just a super vanilla white guy. That's about it.
You don't chew your fingernails.
No. I tend to, a bad habit of mine is to rant about all of the world's ills. I suppose that could be a bad habit.
My bad habit is to watch Forensic Files with my wife present before bed. She hates me.
I do if you're
really
talking
hates
about
that.
like food and guilty pleasures and stuff, there is this very unhealthy nacho dip from Aldi that I will occasionally partake in that it has absolutely zero nutritional value, but it's still delicious.
Sinful.
Yeah.
I have a really terrible bad habit and I'm trying to stop it right now. And that is when I'm going to take a shower, I turn the water on to heat it up before I get on. And then I get distracted and I walk around and I'm checking my phone.
You're killing the
And
planet.
The water's running. But then what happens normally is I haven't even turned the dial. So it's not even been heating up. So I go to get in the shower and it's cold water and I have to end up waiting another 5 minutes for it to heat up. This has happened to me like 30 times in the last 2 weeks.
You're more wasteful than Katy Perry.
I am more wasteful than Katy Perry. People are disgusted. That is what Emily Ratajkowski is disgusted in my water use.
Okay, I'm going to open this one up to the group too. How many days a week do you exercise, and what are your favorite exercises?
I just started running again.
I like to run. I can't run that much anymore because my knees is so bad, but I like to run. I loved running back when I could. But I exercise at least once a day. I don't really like any of it.
I like free weights. The more that I learn about doing free weights, there's always something new that you can do. There's always some routine that you've never heard of before. So just your general basic free weight system, doing that 4 or 5 times a week.
I've mentioned this before, but we go rock climbing once or twice a week, and that's probably in the gym.
That's great. That's
my
exercise.
favorite. It's super good exercise, and it's really, really fun. It's kind of one of those scary things I do. I have 5 kids. I don't do a lot of like challenging, scary, pushing the edge things. But when you're up 30, 40 feet on a wall, it's a little terrifying, and it's kept me kind of on my toes mentally, and I really enjoy it. Come visit us, and we'll take you climbing.
So you're gonna go. Are you going to go summit El Capitan, no ropes?
My husband might. No, not without ropes. Although the Dawn Wall is probably the best documentary ever filmed about climbing ever.
No, Free Solo.
Tommy Caldwell. No, Free Solo is crap. Don't watch it. I refuse. No.
We have some argumentation here.
No, Free Solo is like
Free Solo
watching
is
someone
crap?
dump gasoline all over themselves and light a match and like not get caught on fire, and people think it's cool because it's so dangerous and so reckless.
That's what's so cool about it.
No, it's not, because my kids like to climb, and it's not a good example to them. I think that Alex Honnold is an incredibly talented climber. I think he really, truly is. But if you want to watch good, responsible climbing, watch Tommy Caldwell
That sounds
and the
so
Dawn Wall.
boring.
No, it's not.
She's trying to
boring.
protect her
Zero
kids
risk.
from climbing
I
without ropes.
promise you, they do the Dawn Wall. which
Don't
is
go to
like-
motocross if you want to see good, responsible dirt biking.
If people know about climbing, they know exactly
local
what I'm talking
co-op.
about. There's recklessness, and then there's people who are at the top of their game. And the Dawn Wall, what he did with that climb is literally ground. It is something.
I'll say this, as a
the
person
dude is
who
missing a
doesn't-
finger, and he climbed like 514.
As a person who doesn't rock climb and doesn't care about responsibility in rock climbing, it's way more cool to climb El Capitan without ropes.
It's not that whole.
All right, Mr. B, what's next?
Sorry.
All right, this is another question for the group. What is a lie you told when you were a kid that snowballed out of control?
Whoa.
Goodness,
Gee.
like I don't even remember half of these things.
Lie.
It's not. I'm trying to think what was something that I actually.
I have one. I'll start to get the gears rolling for you guys. I went to camp, and this is not the story of when I was attacked by the special needs person, but it was the same camp. I was there, and there was archery. And for some reason, when I was 6 or 7, I thought it was a good idea to tell a fellow campmate that, oh yeah, I have an archery set up in the backyard of my house. And lo and behold, somehow that kid ended up coming back to my house, I guess for my parents picked me up and brought the kid there, and so we went to the house and there was no archery in the backyard, so I got busted. So I learned a good lesson when I was 6. I don't do it anymore.
Awkward.
Bad karma.
Goodness, I don't remember anything like that.
I don't remember lying getting out of control, but I did. Me and my brother started a roller skating rink in our garage once, and
Are you charging for it?
we were charging money for it, and it got out of control to the point that we couldn't control it anymore, where the whole community showed up and all the kids showed up, and then we no longer controlled our garage anymore. It's the classic, my parents go out of town and I have a party type of a thing, but I was only like 5 and Seth was like 8.
Did you have insurance for that?
No. So kids were showing up with skateboards and kids were showing up with rollerblades. I have no idea why it got so popular, but it was like our whole garage was filled with kids, and we were trying to make money on it. We made money in a couple of different, I would say, sleazy ways. Also, when we were kids, me and Seth, we were always entrepreneurs, and we learned some bad things. One thing that we did was we sold baseball cards. We sold grab bags of baseball cards, and those are just like paper bags filled with baseball cards. And we would just legitimately put the worst baseball cards that we had in them. And the idea is you sell these things and it's a mystery and you can get good ones or whatever out of these, the grab bags or whatever. But we did not mix any good cards into the grab bags. So that was a lie that got out of control. I feel a little bit bad about that. But me and Seth experimented in some sleazy business tactics, I would say, when we were between 6 and 12 years old.
But look how much you learned. Look where you are now.
Yeah. Now we just sell grab bags of satirical headlines.
There you go.
All right, Robin. Joel has nothing. He's perfect. He's never lied as a kid. What do you
I lied to my parents about this. It was a blue Indian corn that I stole from some shop, and I mean, I remember telling them, "Oh no, I totally didn't steal it," and then obviously they knew, and then they took me back to that place, and I had to return it and apologize, and was grounded for like 3 weeks. I don't know. I was probably 6 or 7 at the time, but it didn't snowball out of control. They just caught me red-handed.
Nice.
My worst, and I'll be quick with this because I was a teenager. I have a lot of little ones, but when I was a teenager, I had a boyfriend that my parents hated. I was like 14. I was really young, and I was not obviously allowed to hang out with him. It was very Romeo and Juliet. So I told my parents that I got a job at like down by my sister's house weeding for this lady because it was back in the 90s. Like they weren't going to verify, and I would ride my bike down to my boyfriend's house. And one day I was at my boyfriend's house and I looked out the front window and my dad was pulling in the driveway. And that's the most I ever got in trouble as a kid. My dad called me a name. Like my dad was not a swearer, but he called me a word that I still to this day remember.
Robin, that's legit. That's horrible. Robin, horrible.
It was bad.
You're not allowed on the. You're not allowed on the podcast.
That's the worst
You're not allowed on the
snowball.
podcast.
Yeah.
It was the worst moment of my like.
I can imagine though. That's pretty horrible.
It's
That's
been
like,
30 years almost, or 25 years, and I can
Robin,
remember the feeling of. We weren't doing anything. I want to be very specific. We were just like junior high kids. We were just like watching. There was a bunch of kids at his house, but my dad literally hauled me. No, we weren't like, we were just, hey, we're doing what you like a junior high boyfriend. I don't know,
That still sounds bad.
Yeah, but now I have teenagers,
I'm
and
a
I feel
little
like karma
disappointed in you,
is
Robin.
coming back really hard because we're dealing with so much stuff right now with my boys and girls, and it's just karma. Karma comes back.
All right.
Karma
Anything
doesn't
else,
exist.
Mr. B?
Yeah, Joel.
I think we're good. We'll save them for next week.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you guys for joining us, and we will see you next week with another episode of Beyond Parody. Talk to you later.
Adios.
Bye-bye.